One of my primary functions at Goldsmiths is to coordinate the postgraduate programme in teacher education. I work mainly with student teachers. We place them in the schools around South East London, challenging schools, and we generally beat our head against brick walls against government policy. Goldsmiths is not a popular college with the current government, and recently, as recent as last week, we had an Ofsted inspection. And for those people in the audience who know a little bit about the English education system, a shiver should run down your back when I mention the word Ofsted. Ofsted is the sword of government. It is the one which cuts through education. And I'm going to deal with some issues related to that sword and to that inequality and that power relationship between the top and that which we call life below during the course of this talk. The picture you see in this particular slide, this little drawing, it's done by a little girl called Mona in a school called NIFoundation. We have fault lines that run through society, and we have fault lines that run through our system of gaining knowledge. And Barbara drew her attention to this point, that knowledge is not enough. It's what we do with knowledge that is crucial. And that is where my interest lies. Most schools, most educational institutions, be they primary or be they universities, follow an education system which was largely developed during the 18th century, very much top-down. This school in NIFoundation, amongst 6 others in Israel, Palestine, have no choice but to follow a different system. It is a bilingual school. The children are taught in both Arabic and Hebrew. They are taught the normal curriculum of the Israeli education system, but everything is underpinned by the realities that face that particular context. I've sat in classrooms and watched young people talk about the most divisive issues of that particular region. Issues that if we were to discuss similar issues related to Northern Ireland and the Irish conflict in our classrooms would cause havoc, or could cause havoc. We would be told they would cause havoc, let's say. I don't believe so. I don't believe so. But what I do believe is that there is a gap in capacity. And I believe that the fault line, the major fault line that runs through our society and our ability to use this wonderful subject, this wonderful thing that we call art, to use it effectively in these contexts is that of education itself. And let me explain that. Henry Giroux, who now teaches in Canada and a critical pedagogue, tells us about his experience of growing up and how that experience of collectivity, of a community, of collaboration, changed as soon as he walked into a school. He was told that his experiences didn't matter. It was the experiences of the teachers and of the curriculum that mattered. Not only did his experiences not count, but it was effectively disparaged. The images below are old ones from a piece of work that I've done. It's probably the first real major piece of educational work that I involved myself in, though I didn't know it at the time. I was doing a master's degree at the University of Ulster in Belfast. I was an angry young man. I grew up in an area just behind the university, behind York Street, called the New Lodge Road. And I found myself in this strange place, with these strange discussions taking place. And I found myself struggling to find out what it is I'm doing there. Why am I here? What is it I'm going to be trying to do with this stuff, this new knowledge? And how am I going to make sense out of it for myself and for the world that I live in? I found the university a very difficult place to answer those questions. I found them a place that actually restricted the ability to answer those questions. The very place where these questions should be excavated, should be interrogated, should be challenged, and should be re-questioned, failed to stand up to the mark. This was 1990. It was a time of the Romanian Revolution. It was a time when the students of Timișoara were taken to the streets and demanding their rights. It started in a university, it started in a lecture hall, and it ended up spilling onto the streets, and it ended up with a complete change of government. Meanwhile, back in Belfast, we were killing each other. We weren't talking about it. We weren't openly discussing it. There was no discussion groups in college to deal with this. And in one lecture, actually the first one I ever give as a master's degree student to undergraduates, which wasn't very popular, I said we were stepping over dead bodies to come in here and paint pretty pictures. And we need to change that. We didn't at that time. I don't know whether it's changed since. I hope it has. I was frustrated by this, and I had to say that really I wanted to turn my attention on the college, on the institution. I wanted to attack it. And I wanted to mark it. And for my final degree show, I decided to do a piece of work on the shutters. And it shows the shutters deliberately. To put no entry signs on, to juxtapose the image of the University of Ulster alongside that of the Belfast City Council. Belfast City Council, sterile institution at that time, which was doing very little, sitting alongside the university, sterile institution at that time, which was doing very little. And I want to draw our attention to that. I asked the question, ironically, on a building which used to be a cooperative society, can we cooperate? And the question was being deliberately asked of the institution to the surrounding environment, to the people that walk past that institution on a daily basis. So, this brings me to UDA and Goldsmiths, and what have they got in common? I was largely taught, implicitly, that if you didn't do art, if you didn't get a studio and you didn't paint pictures, and you didn't get into the actual process of cultural production, and you went into teaching, it meant one or the other. And this statement, those who can do and those who can't do teach, is disparaging. That was the one which hung in the background continuously throughout my education, particularly at university. And I went to teach. I went to Romania in 1991. I spent some time there, and then came back from Romania and decided that I needed to get engaged with this stuff. I wanted to actually take the knowledge and do something with it. And the vehicle that I found, or I looked for, that would help me drive through that particular agenda was that of teaching. And I went to Goldsmiths, and I'd done a PGC there, a one-year PGC, and it was a shock to the system, I have to say. I walked into the first classroom in South East London expecting to see people in shorts and skull caps and seen a very different world standing in front of me and sitting in front of me. I'd seen the world in front of me. I'd seen 40 and heard 42 languages in the one school. It was a phenomenal experience, and it rocked me to my very core. I still believed in this little word, this little statement though. And after a short time, well, not short time, 10 years, reasonably short in terms of teaching, I decided that I wanted to do it again. And I left the teaching fraternity and went back, came back to Northern Ireland and started working in this thing called socially engaged arts practice. So I didn't know it at the time, that's what it was. And I'd done this piece of work, and people in the Playhouse might be aware of this one, but there was an artist who came to the Playhouse, who came to Derry a few years ago, called Alberto Ariaza. And he was meant to do some work in the fountain. And there was political issues and he couldn't get to do it. But to satisfy the agenda, he had to work with Protestants, with the loyalist side of the debate. And I was working with Protestants, working in the loyalist areas of East Belfast. And I was approached to try and see if I could do something. And Alberto came to Belfast and worked with me. And I think this was probably, I could be wrong, some people can pull me up on this, but I think this was probably the first time that a wall such as this, a mural such as this, you could say was decommissioned. A piece of work was made in the summer of, I think it was made in the summer of 2002, but it didn't go on the wall for another year. And the process from getting it from classroom or from production to the wall was one fraught with all the sorts of differences and energies that we bring into a complex situation. But we got there in the end, and the piece of work was eventually mounted on the wall. What you read here from the newsletter, of course, wasn't the full truth. And we let that go. And we continuously let that go. But this piece of work is significant for more than one reason, for more than what I said. It gained a little bit of notoriety due to some of the news coverage, and I was asked to go back to Goldsmiths to speak at the conference. Terrified, I went back to Goldsmiths. I was talking to an international audience for the first time about this particular piece of work. And when I seen and heard some of the names in the audience, I said, what do they want to know about this for? This is Ballybean in East Belfast, and they're coming from all over the globe. What am I going to be able to talk to them about Ballybean and hold their attention for 20 minutes or so? And I did. And I spoke about it, and at the end, a wonderful thing happened. They told me who I was. And they told me what I'd done. They told me I was a socially engaged artist, and that I was involved in a socially engaged arts practice. And I went, those who do, do. Those who don't, teach. That's not right then, is it? And of course it wasn't right. It never has been right. We all teach. And my agenda here today is to highlight that. My agenda at Goldsmiths and anywhere I go is to highlight that. We are missing out as artists and as cultural activists. We are missing out. We do not engage with the central mechanism, tool of change called pedagogy. We need to engage, embrace, live with it, love it, challenge it, and push it to its fullest limits. Some big ideas. Ethics. We've already talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the conference. I'm going to go very quickly to this one. I'm with this group, and I find it difficult to say his name. I was told to say Badia, so I'm going to stick with that. Badia. That's my best pronunciation. There are no ethics in general, only ethics of a specific situation. That gives us a mandate to operate and function in any specific context outside of what we know as the common law or the common right way of doing things. Pedagogy. I'm with Ferrer. Solutions should be found with people, not for them, or not superimposed upon them. I would say I'm somewhere between a critical pedagogue and a human being. Ethics and pedagogy, and no problem, due to problem. Scenes of dress, scenes of recognitions, and moments of unknowingness. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in practice. And this thing we call CIAP, is socially engaged practice. I'm going to go with this description of it. It does have many concerns, cross-reference social political issues, and that are beyond that aesthetics, identity, inclusion, democracy, increased building, etc. Can all be recognised within this agenda. CIAP is, in essence, a motivated function of art. It has a utilitarian purpose. That is to bring about change. Let's accept that, and let's live with it, and let's work with it. And the government, there's dangers. The government are with us a little bit on this. Everyone is creative. First paper that was produced. Culture and Creativity by BCNS, in which the opening words were, everyone is creative. Everyone's creative. Please seated. Talking from the top now, or from the top down, as preceded by the paper, all our futures, creativity, culture, and education. And that's led to the appellation creativity, creative, was subsequently employed in policy, such as creative partnerships in schools. We had CIP here in Northern Ireland, and was utilised to fund, and in a way, by default, direct community arts activities. And therein lies the danger. And this comes to my point of usually, when we talk about critical pedagogy, we interrogate and we question. We do not accept on face value. We ask questions of the very things which enable us to be. The challenge for artists, community activists, cultural activists, funders, within the CIAP formal framework, is to ask these questions. If we receive funding, what is the agenda? It could be and really, most likely, it's ultimately good. People want peace in Northern Ireland, and I generally will fund projects to enable that. But we need to know more. We need to ask further questions of that. This is where we gain the knowledge. As artists, we have values. We need to understand those values, where they've come from, how they've been constructed, how we have been pedagogized on side work or something similar to that, how we have had projected onto us a way of being from our experiences at school and through the education system. We need to know that, and we need to describe that, and we need to say it. And in any one project, does the I really become we? I would contest that in art education, in particular in art education, the orthodoxy that prevails is the notion of I. I am the centre of this world, and I will promote that through my work. And that has to be grappled with when we start to engage with other people. We have to grapple with that, we have to understand that, we have to interrogate that. When engaging with communities or individuals, we need to know what their agenda is and where do their values lie. And in a way, through this process of questioning, we start to evolve an understanding of the community and develop a community of practice. One by which we will be able to understand our needs, our desires, what it is we want out of it, what it is we hope to achieve, and set ourselves new challenges within that. And that is the most critical point. Setting those new challenges. Because we will bring to the table, as will the community, as will the funding agencies, as will the top or the bottom, we bring to the table recognised behaviours. That scene of recognition of what they're talking about. We bring that to the table. And what I want to do now is illustrate how this scene of recognition and the scene of address, that is what we do, how we engage with, can take risks, and how we present ourselves within this framework of danger, the danger of this taking, of being undone. It may not work. It just might work. But it's something which we don't know. Moving into that unknowingness. This is the context. Most people here will probably have some sort of idea of this story. Very quickly, a young boy was killed in Ballymena, which is a small market town just outside of Belfast. Typical sort of new town, has old parts to it, it has major new parts to it, and in these new parts with sprawling housing estates. In the Northern Ireland context, these estates are largely controlled through paramilitarism. It's largely Protestant, loyalist town. The little boy, the boy that was killed, was a Catholic lad. He actually was going out with, facing, courting a Protestant crowd. And on his way home from seeing him one night, he was beaten and set upon him. So the partner organisations in this particular project, so people probably at the top, but also working our way down to the bottom. Graduate partnerships in the North Eastern Education Levy Board and the Belfast Education Levy Board. What's their agenda? What was their agenda? You have to know that. Youth project in the Clog Estate, Ballymena. One in Ballycane. And one in Great Youth Centre. So we've got a mixture, a combination of Protestant and Catholics coming together to work on the same piece of work. The fear, the scene of recognition was dictated and set out very clearly by people within the board, within the North Eastern Board, who said, this can't work, this is too dangerous, you can't go down that road. There's going to be a trial. Some of these young boys that are going to be put on trial come from these estates. Some of their friends go to these youth clubs. Some of the friends of the boy who was killed go to these youth clubs. You can't bring these groups together. We wanted to go near that unknownness. We wanted to step into something which we all understood. And I felt we could. But I felt it needed support. So we needed to work with existing knowledge. So the scene of address and the scene of recognition. I worked with the young people for approximately 3 months, one night a week, going to their respective youth centres, and they understood painting, which is good. I didn't understand it. They also understood painting as a mode of communication. As kids are in the States where wall murals adorn the physicality of the space. They understood visuals were very strong in that communicator. And I enabled them, and we started a process of delivering visual material, which they felt in some way represented them. This is the Catholic one. Scene of address. Standard. I was there, facilitator, know a little bit about painting. I went to the arts for 9 years, it should do. So, we're going to do painting. We'll frame a board, we'll mark it out, we'll construct the images and symbols, we'll talk about what these symbols mean, how they're loaded, are they not loaded, are we combining formal elements, scene of address. This is stuff that they're being used to from school, particularly from art class. And they painted. Yes, we cheated. We used overhead projector. It was not great. This is what was produced. Big risks started to be taken here. Big risks were taken by the youth workers, by the youth clubs, by the parents, by CYP. They began to recognize that these images were a little bit uncomfortable. Youth clubs and education, we're not meant to do this stuff. It kind of reinforces that sort of stereotype. Stereotype exists. And unless we get it out, get it onto this, get the visuals out there, we're not going to really be able to engage with it. So we're working within the scene of recognition. This is the scene that these young people recognize. That's not denied that. Then the challenge, risk and unknowingness. After working with the group for 3 months, they kind of trusted me as much as they could do as an outsider. I trusted them as much as I could do as an outsider. And we agreed that it was possible and plausible we could bring the two groups together. That we can bring the human beings together, we can bring the youth workers together, we can bring the artworks together. Under one premise. That on the first night, it was a residential, on the first night we got the opportunity to discuss the potential for change. To take risks, to step out of what we know. I hadn't got a clue whether this was going to work or not. And at times I didn't think it was going to work. Big risk. Young people got together. We discussed the potential for change. And they decided, through democratic methodology, they voted, and we got through that about 2 votes to change these pieces of work under one condition, that they kept certain elements of it. And that was important for them. Because change is good. We can't change too much too quickly. They wanted to go back. So they wanted to retain some of that back. They masked up certain areas of the piece of work to protect it. And they painted over it. Which in the red. They discussed with their creative hours the sort of images and symbols, the lives that they imagined they could live. This new place. This new space. These new ideas. They designed, projected, and reinvented, produced a pretty stable piece of work. And on its own, it wasn't really enough, because there was one underlying issue which really hadn't been addressed. That underlying issue was that a little boy had been killed. And there was a court case. And it was likely that a judgment was going to be passed on that court case within the next few weeks. Could they that could engage with what that felt like for them. And they could, and down to the left-hand side of this image, you see a young lad painting what is the symbol of a coffin. And this is Michael McElroy. The coffin is a representation of that young lad. The little boy painting it is a Protestant kid. He comes from one of the states where some of the young people that he knows were on trial. They discussed this at depth before they decided to put it on. And they put it on. But then, the thing that enabled them to put it on was that wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. What we really wanted to get to was some of the reasons, the underlying ideas, reasons for this young man being killed. Knowledge is good, but it's not enough. And they discussed some of those ideas and some of those reasons with their youth workers, who were now so much a part of the project. I was nowhere to be seen, which was fantastic. So it was starting for me to be able to step back and see the youth workers who are going to be there with them after the event. I'll be long gone. They're dealing with these issues now. And they began to locate some of these issues and type them up in words. And they've done like an election again on them. Which ones were the key? These key words, these key things, which cause the separation, cause the sort of hatred, the brutalities which end up with the young boy being killed. And this is what they selected. Once they selected, they're then transferred onto the artwork. Remember? One word. After the words were put on, they then pulled the tape back off the artwork to reveal the reality. They disturbed the surface. They disturbed the surface. Physically and in reality, they disturbed the surface. But intellectually, they had already done that. They had brought us to an unknown place. Central issue, which they believe caused division, caused the hatred, caused the fear of school. And it went right in the middle of the artwork. Take school out of the agenda, that's a physical place, and we all imagine what a school looks like. Let's call it education. Let's call it education. Now, this is my belief. As artists, as cultural practitioners, as educationalists, we need to know this stuff. We need to know that when we enter into this work, we are becoming educators, and not be frightened of it. And take that piece of whatever you want to call it, but those who do, and those who don't teach, and pin it. Burn it if you have to get it out of your head. Because we teach. That's what we do. We may not have done a PGCE. We may not be going into classrooms. But we teach. We are involved in education. And by engaging with this thing called pedagogy, it brings us into another discourse. This is extremely vital and important in relation to socially engaged arts practice. Then we can start to interrogate this. When it sits on the sideline, not even on the sideline, when it's buried, when it is put away in a place which is seen as disparaged, you can't do that. I advocate that all community arts courses throughout the UK, throughout Europe, throughout the world, should have a core module in pedagogy. And I am shocked and surprised at my own college, Goldsmiths, which has such a reputation for the arts and humanities, that whenever I went across the bridge from the Department of Education Studies into the Department for Social Engagement, PACE, taught on a community arts program, and after one term, the students had never heard that word on a master's program in community arts. I must be explicit. Artists who dare to teach and word the risk. Here's the risk: our values, our dispositions, our truths, our scene of address, our scene of recognition, and our security. They're just a couple. Proud, Moroccan French artist places yourself in the border between belonging and not belonging. Ai Weiwei takes risks, dares to ask questions, and has lost his freedom due to that. Julian, who I had the honour of meeting last year whenever I was based in Haifa. He was killed for daring to teach. Finally, I was in the Tate a couple of weeks ago to develop a new program with her. And we stood looking at this piece of work by Ai Weiwei. And I noticed, because we can't walk on it anymore, they have a video which has been put down on the floor of the turbine hall in an enclosed space. And it shows the process of the making of the piece of work. And I went over and stood halfway in, halfway out, looking at how it was made, and looking at the piece of work itself. And I heard this voice coming from right beside the piece of work, pretty close to me, and said, "Come here. Here do you see? It's showing you making it. That man must be an artist. He's a clever man. He's a clever man. Look, he's talking to them. He's showing them something. He's showing them how he's an artist. No, he's a teacher." Thank you. Generally the same. These young people, these children, become objects to be controlled, objects to be told things, and objects to respond to those things. They become what Ferreira talks about, part of a banking education system. The teacher knows things, the curriculum knows things, they deposit it in their memory bank, and then we look at it in terms of examination. Northern Ireland is wonderful for that. Believe it or not, across the water in England, there is an idea that Northern Ireland's education system is outstanding. It shows itself as outstanding in terms of the results that people achieve at GCSE and at A-level. Those young people, from the first instance, as I say, going to two separate schools, one Catholic, one Protestant, but what's happening in those schools is common. Now you can change the detail. Like they may talk about the Irish history and the famine and the Great Hunger in the Catholic school, whereas they may talk about the reign of King William or the English tutors in the Protestant school. You can change the content, but ultimately the same thing is happening. They are being told things. And in a situation like this, which I agree, it's an uncomfortable one. We're sitting up here, you're sitting down there. We're talking to you, getting a chance to have a dialogue now. But ultimately, if you're in a classroom and your only experience of teaching and learning as a receiver, you will come to believe what you're being told. And those young people believed what they were being told, whether implicit or explicitly. Explicitly through the curriculum and through content, implicitly through action, implicitly through what you're not told. So school became for them the hook that they felt the best place to set this notion of difference, this notion of what is it that fuels this difference. But as I say, schools, bricks, mortar, and people in it. We are talking about the institution of education. I hope I've answered that in some way.
Okay, I would add.
A history teacher in East Belfast took the young people out to look at the murals on the gable wall. King Billy, in all his splendour, on a white horse, looking all this. So he looks at the evidence, he said, this is the picture of the King Billy's riding boots. Right, we actually know King Billy wasn't as big a man as that. Go back to the and so on. We also know at the Battle of the Boyne, he didn't ride a white horse, because had he been on a white horse, he would have been identified. Now, these are disaffected young teenage boys. So, and they found this fascinating and interesting, and it was challenging the mural. And they went home, and kids next day, one little, the really little bulky little guy said, I was telling my granny what you said about King Billy. He says, fantastic community engagement, this is wonderful, sharing, learning. And I told him what you said about King Billy and the white horse. Told my granny. He said, this is wonderful. And what did your granny say? Well, my granny says, I'm not to listen to another effing word you say. So basically, the evidence and the myth and the community. You're talking about the Ballymena and Catholic schools and Protestant schools, but those are the communities, and there is a huge community conditioning we've had here in our divided society. So I see evidence of schools developing critical stuff, and we've got to look to the future, and that critical thinking supporting the arts, supporting all that. And I think, John, it's better than it was on York Street in 1990. I really do. And we've got to move forward optimistically.
Well, Tom. It has not got art in it. It does not have drama in it. And music has been written now. We have fallen off the table from the top, and there's a fight ongoing to try and find art's place again. But I do think there is an issue here, and I think you're coming very close to it. I think we have to redefine art's place. I don't think art is about drawing a training shoe anymore, and I never thought it actually was. I think it's about what you've just touched on. I think it is about the development of critical thinking, and it's a wonderful vehicle for that. And that is why I promote this and grapple with this engagement, this direct engagement with pedagogy through the community arts. The problem with pedagogy is that as soon as you mention it, we start to talk about schools. And that's what's happened here this morning. Pedagogy exists in the practices of the artists in the Bogside, in the work that you do. I've done a presentation a few weeks ago in London about, and it was entitled, Can Art Change the World? It was completely focused on one wall. And I think you know the wall we're talking about. It's a free dairy wall. And how that wall is a teacher. And how that wall and the images that adorn it and the images that surround that immediate space brought, I believe, the British government to heel. They kept Bloody Sunday in the public sphere, visually. And I believe that art can change the world. And I think what happened in that city, just across the border, and what happened last June is clear evidence of that. And that's why we're so important. That's why the subject's so important. That's why we fight tooth and nail to maintain it. I worry about what's happening in England. And I really do hope it doesn't cross the water. I really do hope. And I take great sense of delight in what you're saying. But I do think you're touching on something which is really, really crucial. Art does need to change in the formal education sector. It needs to redefine itself for where we are today. And I think critical thinking and the ability to question are key areas where art not only fits, it belongs. It belongs in that space.